Looks like we lost Aaron already before the show started. Oh no, can you hear us?
He seems to be frozen. Yeah.
He's just staring at us. Either this is a great elaborate prank, or yeah, I'm just gonna remove him. Hi, Brooks. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. Welcome. Happy Friday. I do apologize for the technical difficulties. We've been having some issues all over the board. I'm a little under the weather. Things aren't working, but hey, we made it. It's Friday.
Yeah.
So to make it to the end of the day, and we're good. Smooth sailing from here. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. We'd love to see you guys in the comments. Thank you for showing up. Break, yes, it's Friday. Let's go. We did it. So we have a very, very special show here for you guys today because, of course, we love talking about all things tech. Of course, this is our Get Into IT Live show. Thank you so much again for being here, even during your possible lunch break, if it is your lunch break for you guys. So thank you so much for being here. And I have a wonderful guest. This is going to be a topic, though, that I think a lot of people can pull from, specifically talking about jobs in the industry. We see a lot of frequently asked questions over on our social pages that we monitor where people say things like, nah, but nobody's hiring in IT right now. Nobody's hiring in tech. Nobody actually wants to work in tech and nobody, there's no budget for it, blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about that. Are folks actually hiring? That's something that we need to dive into, especially for those who are attending MyCC or thinking about it. So let's get into that. What roles are they looking for? Is IT even a good career path compared to other sectors? And of course, there's going to be all kinds of opinions on that. So let's dive in. And I am pleased to introduce Brooks Raiford. Is that how you say your last name? I didn't even confirm before the show. Raiford, right?
You got it.
Hey, let me tell people about our guest here. Thank you so much for being here, Brooks. You've served as president and CEO of the North Carolina Technology Association, NC Tech, since 2008, and the org represents more than 600 member companies employing over 250,000, North Carolinians. His career includes work as a policy aide to the governor of North Carolina, that's super cool, focusing on information technology, and you serve as vice chair of the Technology Councils of North America and has been recognized on Business North Carolina Magazine's Information Technology Power List multiple times. So, no big deal. You're not you're not doing all things all the time. And this is incredible. I love that. Thank you so much.
Long enough you get. Yeah.
I love that. That's an incredible bio. Thank you again for being here.
Sure.
Super excited to dive into this. I'm looking through our comments here. Thank you so much for being here, Rick. I really always appreciate it. All right. I think Aaron's able to help me out with the banners here. I see one popped up. Okay, cool. Let's dive right in. Okay. Before we dive into the numbers, could you tell, and again, you guys know this in the comments, of course, you can always post questions for us and we will see them after the show. You know how this works if you guys have been here before. So before we dive into the numbers, could you tell our national audience here about the role organizations like NC Tech play in tracking industry trends and supporting the tech ecosystem? I love that, tech ecosystem. Let's dive into that.
Sure. Well, the NC Tech, as its name implies, is a statewide nonprofit industry association, fairly traditional structure. There are groups like ours in many states. In fact, several of our team members are just returned from a national conference of our peer organizations around the country and in Canada. Many of the provinces in Canada also have tech associations. Most of us are not government entities or nonprofits. We depend on membership from our member companies, organizations, and institutions to drive our revenues through membership dues and things like that. So in turn, what we do is what most associations do. We are good at convening. So we have conferences and programs of various sorts, small curated gatherings of professionals all the way up to multi-hundred person events, zeroing in on strengths of the tech sector, what's new in tech. We have programming around women in tech. That's actually been a very fast growing area for us. And other kinds of programming throughout the year. Always sort of a look ahead. What are trends in the tech world, as well as hiring, which we're going to talk about a lot today. But basically, what we offer our industry is trends in hiring, trends in technology, what's new, what's on the horizon. In our case, where is North Carolina leading, where are we sort of known for having some particular strengths. And then beyond that, we advocate for the sector. We're not an economic development organization formally, but we're what's often referred to in the trades as an ally. So when the state or a local community or county is talking with a prospective a company that might be looking to expand into our area or grow an existing presence here, particularly in tech, we're often called in to meet with them, give them a lay of the land, a sense of the ecosystem, the word that you zeroed in on there, just to give them some sense of the strength we have as a community, economy, cost of living, quality of workforce, and those sorts of things. So that's a long, rambling way of saying, in general, what we do, our purpose in being the state's tech advocacy organization.
Not rambling at all very important.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it seems like, we do a lot of research as well with trends and stuff, and I post some videos on our socials about things that are happening, in, of course, the IT world, but North Carolina gets brought up a lot. I mean, there was an article recently about like a huge, I think it was an Amazon warehouse or something like coming to North, like they're trying to bring like more jobs here. All incredible, which actually leads me into my next question. We're seeing North Carolina's IT job postings up nearly 6% compared to June of last year, while also showing month-over-month growth from May. Meanwhile, the national numbers are slightly down year over year. Is this kind of regional variation common, like to see that kind of go up and down in different directions? And what can seekers learn from these regional differences in both monthly and annual trends?
Yeah, so regional variances are not uncommon, and there's a variety of factors. The Triangle, for example, has 3 Research 1 universities. R1 is the terminology there. NC State, Duke, UNC Chapel Hill, in very close proximity to each other. That's pretty unusual to have 3 such significant institutions so close together. We certainly benefit from that. It's worth noting that for the first time in eons, 2 more institutions in North Carolina just got added to in having that designation as an R1 institution, and they are ECU and UNC Charlotte. So now we have 5 in North Carolina, and adding 2 more regions to that list, which is great. So anyway, having those present is a big deal. It means they're spending, or they're receiving and then spending certain thresholds of umpteen millions of dollars on research and development, which certainly drives the strength of our economy here. Also, we have strong public schools. A lot of regions in the country are not able to say that. We're very fortunate to have that, and certainly in the major metros in North Carolina. We are an in-migration state. We rank among the top few states in people who are already skilled professionals who move here. Sometimes, and I get these calls all the time, anecdotally, I'll tell you, people who have decided to move to North Carolina, they somehow find me or us. I think our name kind of is easy to, North Carolina technology shows up in a Google search pretty quickly. So they'll call and say, listen, I'm a mid-career tech professional. I've got a family. We want to be in an area where we've got access to great quality of life, coastal and mountains, easily accessible, middle of the East Coast, good weather, good economy. We're a pretty solid economy. We don't tend to have bubbles when there are bubbles, and we don't tend to have terrible troughs when there are downturns, because our fundamentals are strong, and that's noticed by people. So in-migration is very important to us. I mention this a lot when people ask, do we have enough pipeline development? Are we turning out enough students to be able to fill our jobs? And I always say, well, that's important. But there's, in addition to that, there's 2 other legs to that stool. One of them is in-migration that I've been talking about. We're very strong there, bringing in seasoned professionals who just want to live here, raise their families here, retire here. And the third is our existing workforce. We're really lucky in North Carolina to have employers who are willing to invest in upskilling their own workers. But we have an amazing community college system. We have organizations like yours and others that are able to bring skill development from other angles. You put all that together, it's a pretty rich menu of options for people who are currently here, already employed, but are looking to advance and have opportunities for advancement. So you put all those together, it's a pretty strong 3-legged stool.
It's absolutely booming. Yeah. Just don't tell them, of course, North Carolina has a lot to offer. Just don't tell them about the humidity.
Right. We don't mention August.
I think it was like 96% this morning, and I wanted to scream. But no, I love North Carolina, born and raised.
Me too.
Absolutely booming. Oh, yeah? Where are you at?
Born and raised in Greensboro. I've been in the Raleigh area for college.
Yeah. Love that. I'm over in Statesville, so I'm about an hour north of Charlotte.
There you go.
Cute little town.
Yeah.
I do love coming over to the Raleigh area. Most of my family went to Chapel Hill, so of course we're all Tar Heel fans. But I'm about to marry a Duke fan, so
wow, that's really a mixed marriage there.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Anyway, well, that's super interesting too, and I love to see that 6% jump because, like I said, yeah, it just feels like lately I've just been seeing article after. Yeah, we won't talk about the allergens either, or the how my car turns yellow. We won't do that either. It's great. North Carolina is great. Come hang out. Because I just feel like I've been seeing article after article about North Carolina lately. So that's great that it's, not just catered to my location. Looking at the overall trends here, what would you say are the most resilient sectors within IT that tend to maintain strong hiring even during economic fluctuations? Like, let's dive into that a little bit too, because I'm sure that's on a lot of people's minds as well.
Well, it's an important question. I kind of touched on earlier that North Carolina has a pretty solid foundation, so our economy tends to be better than others when things are down, but not as high flying as others when things are booming in a certain region. And I think that's probably a good place for us to be. But to your question, the most resilient sectors in IT hiring actually have been, in particular, banking or financial institutions and consulting, the large consulting firms and small consulting firms, but consulting in general, which is interesting to me. It's worth noting here an interesting stat. We put out an annual report on the state of the tech sector. It typically is released in February of each year. So the 2025 report was released a few months ago, and we've been doing that for a decade or more. And in conjunction with that, we do a monthly tech job trends report, and you sort of alluded to that, and we'll get into that shortly. But it's important to know that there are tech workers and there are people employed by the tech sector. And I want to distinguish the two because it's important for people to grasp that as I talk about this. You're a tech worker if you are a techie, and the work you do is technology work, no matter who your employer is. So if you are the CIO of the Charlotte Hornets, you're a tech worker. But you are not employed by the tech sector. You work for a basketball team. And that basketball team is not a tech company or tech employer or entity. So all employees of the Charlotte Hornets, none of them are employed by the tech sector. But some number of them in the IT organization there are definitely tech workers. Conversely, everybody who works for Microsoft, which has one of its largest campuses in the world in Charlotte, believe it or not, everyone who works at that site for Microsoft is employed by the tech sector. But of course, not all of them are tech workers. There are salespeople, there are admins, there are cafeteria workers, there are finance people, you name it. So they are not tech workers, and they're not counted as a tech worker, but they are counted as being employed by the tech sector. So what's interesting is there are more people who are tech workers in North Carolina than there are people who are employed by the tech sector. That feeds what I'm about to tell you, which is that of the top 10 hirers of tech talent, and we track that every month in North Carolina, pre-COVID, it was about 50-50. About half of the top hirers were tech companies that you would think of. And then the other half were non-tech. Could be retail, could be health systems, could be government. But during and post-COVID, it's been much more the non-tech hirers. So the most recent data shows that 8 of the 10 top hirers of tech talent in North Carolina in the most recent numbers were not tech companies. They were banks, they were consulting firms, they were some of the things I'm mentioning to you. Only 2 were tech companies that you traditionally would define that way. So back to your question, where's the resiliency? The resiliency is that we are not an economy in North Carolina that is overly dependent on one sector or another. But the beauty about tech is that everybody has to have it. So tech hiring happens across the board, not just from tech companies.
Interesting. Okay.
Hey, Patricia, how am I coming through? Am I working?
For now, but you said
welcome back.
But you said something, so now it's not.
Is it really not working?
It's working.
It is. Yeah, we see
Hey,
it
you're
here.
doing a great job, by the way, playing hurt here. I appreciate it. I know that
I'm like,
this
I'm
wasn't ideal.
on a boat right now, but I'm here. I'm with you.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you let me take over until it fails, and then you can jump back in.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna play
Thanks.
tag here. Pass it
Thank
along.
All right. I have been listening, by the way.
Good.
I learn new things every day about tech. I'll tell you that much. I'll tell you what doesn't work. And what isn't working today is my microphone. And it makes everything completely shut down.
Oh.
So, FYI. Brooks, just to continue the discussion, by the way, and I think it's an important one, just in general, because Patricia introed it well. The health of IT. We are here and you are here, organizations, and your organization is here to give the honest update on what's happening. When things are going well, you report it. When things are down a little bit, you report it, but then you also say why. And I think that's important for all of our folks to hear, or anybody interested in IT. We're going to give you the honest kind of update on what's happening in tech. And yes, there are opportunities in technology. So just to continue that theme, one of the things that our folks are really interested in is remote work. And that conversation isn't going anywhere. And, it ramps way up during COVID. It's still hanging around. We see a lot of organizations are actually pushing back to work. For those students and, IT folks watching, how important is location flexibility right now in the job market? Are remote opportunities, are they truly still abundant, or are employers trending more towards that in-person work?
It's a great question. I'll just begin with a sort of a funny anecdote on that. I gather tech leaders fairly often in smaller sort of dinner settings, lunch settings, et cetera, to talk about issues of interest to them, or what are they facing, et cetera. I don't care what subject we put on the topic of the day, somebody's going to ask of their peers at the table, so what are all of you doing about, and by the way, return to work is a fraught phrase. People are working, but return to office is, of course, what people are thinking about.
Right.
Hey, brother, I've been working. So return to office it still comes up. I still get questions about it. Hey, what are others saying? Everyone wants to know what everyone else is doing. But what I'm hearing, because I do talk to a broad swath, and you read it more and more in the press, as you alluded to, there is definitely a move back toward at least partially in office, if not mostly in office. The feedback is from leadership that the ability to collaborate, the ability to overhear a conversation or a comment by chance that triggers in you a thought or a comment or an update that you need to make to help whoever just said that make a good decision, or hey, before you call that person, I actually have an update for you. That does not happen in the linear world of online communication. The linear world of online communication is you email me and you wait for me to email you back. You Teams me, you wait for me to Teams you back. The messaging back and forth takes time, and it's not conversational the way you and I might have a normal dialogue in the hallway or in a meeting with 4 people. And you don't schedule every conversation you have when you're in an office. They just sometimes happen. You get grabbed into a meeting because you happen to walk by a conference room and someone says, hey, Brooks, we could actually use your insights here. That rarely happens when you're sitting at a computer screen in a Starbucks or in your kitchen, and no one walks by, no one happens to overhear you. So we hear that a lot from hiring managers or leaders. I want to speak to your question about students, particularly young professionals, as they're early in their career or just starting their career, on this very question.
Sure.
All that I just said about the happenstance of the phrase often is water cooler conversation. Of course, the very people we're talking about have no idea what a water cooler is, but a water cooler conversation are valuable. The chance encounters are valuable. Being seen, if you're a new employee or an early career person, and you have the chance to just be in the general presence of people senior to you and senior to them and senior to them in the course of your day, that can't help but add to your visibility in your organization, which then has either a direct or indirect impact on the degree to which you are thought of for promotion, advancement, involvement in a project, etc. My daughter is a great example of that. She's several years into her professional career. She works for a big company you would know the name of. They have 2 offices in the city she's based in, and she can work remotely pretty much all the time, but chooses to make sure she's in a good bit. She understands that value, and she has many anecdotes where that value has proven very real, and I'm proud of her for that. And I do think a lot of younger people in that same circumstance are getting that. I think you're seeing them want to be in the office, have that interaction, particularly with people who aren't their immediate peer group or peer level.
Folks, if you take nothing else away from this conversation, and I hope that you do, but if you don't, that's the sage advice you want to listen to. Be seen, be present, make yourself invaluable, especially early on in your career. I think it's just fantastic advice. It actually, it helped me get to where I am as well, sitting in those boardrooms early on. Yes, folks, there used to be boardrooms, there used to be water coolers. That actually really was a thing. I love it. It's just great advice. All right, Brooke. So we're talking about obviously the tech industry here, and I constantly, and we constantly on our social channels and our marketing materials, we're making the argument that the definition of the tech industry is changing. We're no longer just looking at Silicon Valley, and we're no longer looking at just big tech driving our industry, or the health of our industry. The reality is that the argument that we're making is if folks are leaving those organizations, literally every organization has an IT department, and they're being absorbed across the country into other organizations. So with that in mind, your findings last month show financial institutions appear to be significant tech employers. What industries beyond the traditional tech sector should IT pros be considering in those job searches?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier the 2 that we've been talking about. Financial services are key. Consulting is another area, but also retail, healthcare, et cetera. In the Charlotte, we talked about Charlotte earlier. Lowe's, which is headquartered in that region, Lowe's Home Improvement, a while back was looking around the country as to where to place a 2,000 person tech hub for their own company. And they ultimately did choose Charlotte region to do that. So Lowe's for a while was showing up in that top 10 list of hirers because they were hiring up to meet that demand. But it's important to note that the tech sector is not unlike the broader business community. And by that I mean, in the scheme of things, there are only so many large companies, brand name, big companies that we all know the names of.
Right.
The vast majority of business enterprises are small to medium, and that is true within our membership. 75% of our members have fewer than 50 employees. A handful have thousands of employees in North Carolina, but the vast majority are small and medium. And the national data around the business community broadly, and I think it would be true with the IT sector, the net hiring, the net growth in employment is in the small and medium businesses. It's not driven by the large companies. Think about it. If a 4-person firm grows to 6 in a year, that's a 50% growth rate. No big company does that. Now it's only 2 people, but that's where the growth is. The net growth is happening. So I think it's important people understand that the job opportunities you might think of branded companies. One thing we hear a lot is there are a lot of big companies who have big brand names, but they're not thought of as a tech company. So they're not thought of as a tech employer of choice or a destinational tech employer. They often come to the association for help with that. How can we get better known as a major tech hirer, even though our brand name says retail, or our brand name says healthcare, or our brand name says banking? So we do a lot of work around that and trying to highlight that job opportunities exist broadly across the economy for people in tech, not just in the sort of traditional tech brand names that you think of.
So Brooks, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's, if you're starting out, don't just look for the name of an organization, go find the best opportunity.
Hey, Krispy Kreme is a member of NC Tech. They've got a CIO and a tech team, and you get free donuts. So,
amen. Tell you what, that's a perk. That's right. In terms of hiring, is hiring seasonal in IT? Or do we see fluctuations throughout the year in spots where we're obviously hiring a lot more and spots where we're not?
Yeah. So pre-COVID, if you had asked me this question, I would have said yes. Year after year after year, when we look at the monthly reporting that we do and track it, on an annual basis,
Yeah.
you would see in a bar chart of the months, a slow, sort of steady in the summer, middle of the year, a dip in Q4. That's for a couple of reasons. One is a lot of companies and employers' budgets come to a close at the end of December. They're budgeting for the next year during the fourth quarter, and the holidays. So a lot of hiring sort of slows down. I'm sure people out there have many horror stories to tell about being in an interview process that seems to go dark, and then suddenly in January they get a call to resume, and they've been worried all over the holiday about it. And then in Q1 there's a spike because all that activity kind of restarts and is re-energized. That was a very predictable trend year after year. COVID came, that changed everything. Tech workers, as you know, there's a huge surge in tech hiring, and some would say an over hot approach to that, and companies had to recalibrate as COVID began to subside. But post-COVID, if we are post-COVID, the pattern has started to show signs of coming back to that norm. I'm really looking to see this year how we finish out. Will Q4, we're in Q3 now at the beginning of it, but will Q4 see a dip? Will Q1 see a boost? We started to see a bit of that happen in the last cycle. I want to see if that's now the back to the old normal again. So I don't know that I can predict, but that is the usual business cycle. And to the extent we're somewhat back to normal or close to it, I would guess we will see that.
It's really interesting to hear kind of the evolution of things and, how we may be coming back around.
Right.
And yes, by the way, I have been one of those folks that have been there that's had an interview during the holidays, and then February shows up and you get a call. Yeah. So by the way, we are going to share the NC Tech's June findings, so you can go find their dashboard and you can go look at their historical findings as well. So back throughout the year. So I'd certainly recommend going and doing so. And looking and digging through all of that good information. You have a list of credentials, and it shows that security certifications kind of dominate the top spots in those lists of credentials. Is cybersecurity a good specialization for someone just entering IT? Or is that kind of a better later career focus? We get the reason I asked Brooks is obviously we get cyber's hot. People want to talk about cybersecurity. It's everywhere in the news. Is that a viable gig for an entry-level person?
The short answer is yes. It is still one of the highest demand backgrounds that hirers are looking for. It's one of the ones that hirers say they have the hardest time filling because the pool of available people does not match the demand. It is not the type of role that will subside. It will just, it might morph. I think and I'm not a technologist, I should throw that right out there. But what we're hearing, of course, is that while the demand for cyber talent will continue to grow, the utilization of AI in their work is also going to grow. So I'm sure we'll talk about AI soon, but cyber as a specialty, as a certification, is one of the highest demand roles. And I want to use this opportunity to say that one of the good things about technology careers is that adding certifications, what we often call stackable credentialing, is a great way to add up to a person's skill set throughout their career, which allows them to upskill in new areas or emerging areas, or as demand emerges, even while they're employed and have had maybe a traditional tech background or training or undergraduate degree or community college degree, whatever they've had. It's a path of advancement without having to necessarily go back for a time-consuming and potentially expensive additional degree or an original degree in your case, and if that's your case, but instead through more concentrated, accelerated certification programs, you can build your resume while working with your current employer, making yourself more valuable, opening up doors for advancement. And we see that really being an important approach for people to take. And if cyber happens to be an area that you're not in and you really want to get some background there, either because you're interested or you want to sort of backstop your potential for career advancement, that's a great way to do it.
And we're going to get into career advancement here in this next question, but I just want to make sure to mention some of the folks here in the chat. Matthew, as Brooks mentioned, he is not a technologist, so it may not be perfect for which cybersecurity positions recommended for applying for entry level. But Brooks, obviously, I mean, if you know, feel free. But otherwise, go jump into their data, go check CompTIA. There's a lot of great information there that'll help you with those early level positions.
I'll tell for those who are on right now or might listen later, our web address is short, nctech.org. And if you go to our talent, you can hover over the menu and go to talent, and you'll see all the resources we've been talking about, our dashboard, our annual report, the monthly job trends, bar chart that I was describing. So it's a rich resource for you.
Perfect. We just shared that out as well. So really good advice there from Brooks, folks. All right. So talking about credentials, continuing that discussion about experience. It was really interesting, I guess not surprising, to see that 43% of jobs are looking for junior level experience, 3 to 5 years. And I wanted to call this out specifically because obviously there are so many folks vying for positions in IT right now. And a lot of our audience are early career to junior career, in the early to junior career part of their lives right now. So if I'm a searcher and I see that number, Brooks, 43% are looking for 3 years experience and I don't have any, I'm panicked, or I'm at least a little concerned. How am I going to break through? Any thoughts on what you'd recommend for kind of bridging that experience gap and making yourself valuable in IT or stand out a little bit?
Sure. I want to throw a stat out just for context purposes. The unemployment rate is at historically low in the country. For us to be persistently 4%, give or take, is really, really strong. It's been said that full employment is considered by economists to be as high as 5%, meaning if we have 5% or less unemployment, that's essentially full employment, because while there are people who are trying to get a job and can't in the moment, always are, the bulk of those would be people who might be between positions, might be maybe pausing their hunt. They might be in the process of good discussions, but not yet landed one. But less than 5%, there's always churn in employment. So that low single digits, pretty good place to be. Tech unemployment is typically less than that, often half of that. And in North Carolina, has been true. I don't have the latest numbers on my brain, but that trend is fairly consistent and predictable. Yep. So that's good news for tech professionals. I'll mention a few things, some of which I've mentioned already. We just talked about stackable credentialing. That's a huge way to come out of whatever your foundational background is, whether it's an undergrad degree, an associate's degree, or some degree of some level of training and certifications. Sure. More credentialing is essential, or a terrific opportunity that I can't overstate. But also look for apprenticeship opportunities. More and more companies are engaged in that. One of the things we've heard tech companies leaders say over the years, pre-COVID, certainly during COVID and now, is that historically tech companies would have almost as a given in their job description an undergraduate degree as sort of an entry-level requirement. That has really started to go away. Companies are willing to hire people who have the right basic foundational skill sets, the right attitude and aptitude, and then bring them to the being 100%er in-house. That is a fairly new approach in the scheme of things among tech employers. You may know that Governor Cooper and now Governor Stein have both signed executive orders to require the state's HR organization to go through and review all job descriptions in the state of North Carolina to remove an undergraduate degree as a requirement for consideration if the job just really in today's modern world doesn't require that. And that's true within IT as well. So there's much lower bar to have that chance to get into a career job, an early career job, without having the traditional undergraduate experience. So I want to emphasize that. As I say, tech employers are increasingly comfortable with and even excited about the chance of bringing people in at all levels of skill sets and formal backgrounds, with the opportunity to then, through a formal program or just through experience in the company, grow into the role, grow into being a productive and contributing member of their team.
Brooks, we've done 150 of these episodes, and we've talked about dropping the degree requirement. We've had folks on, and we spent a whole episode on it. And the conversations then were around, it's going to be adopted, but it's going to be adopted slowly because it was a federal mandate at the time from the White House, and then it kind of is trickling its way down. And it's interesting to see over the last several months, and it may be because I live in the space, but the conversation does seem to it is amplified right now. It does seem to be growing, which is encouraging for a lot of folks and out there looking for gigs, obviously. So I think it makes sense. Want to end with this one. It's not the one we have on our list, by the way. I always try to end with this question for folks like you, Brooks.
Okay.
Just in general, why should somebody consider a career in the IT industry?
Well, I think a variety of reasons. Among the reporting that we do, we also talk about average wages, and tech wages are on average a good bit higher than average wages in the state. Secondly, the average tech job supports 3.1 or 2 additional jobs. So there are jobs in the economy, the service economy, for example, et cetera. It's called an economic multiplier. Every industry, if a study is done, there's going to be some multiplier. It could be 1 to 1, it could be 1 to 3. Tech happens to be in North Carolina a 3x multiplier. So it's an impactful job to have for yourself in terms of average wages and buying power. We rank very high actually among the states in the buying power that tech employees have, because the wages are higher than average, but our cost of living is lower than in some other hotspots around the country. So your dollar goes further here than it might go in Boston or Austin or the Bay Area, certainly the Bay Area. So that's important to note. It also is very transferable. You can be very mobile. If you've got tech skills, you can up and go anywhere you want to go and still do what you do. And that's true for certain professions. I think that's harder for some jobs, frankly, like mine. My role is built on years of relationships and understanding the state and its ecosystem, et cetera. You don't plop me in Wichita and have me doing the same level of quality work that I do now. Right. Whereas if you're in tech, you can be valuable to anybody wherever they are. A side note there is during COVID, this happened. It was accelerated, but it still is true. Tech workers are deciding where they want to live and then deciding who they want to work for. And so if they can work remotely most of the time or enough of the time that they might live at the coast or in the mountains or on a lake and then maybe go in, as needed, that's really appealing. And that's where a lot of our more rural or less metro-oriented regions are benefiting from people coming in with higher wages, spending that money in that community, spending time in that community. Kids are educated in that community, but they might have an employer that's based elsewhere. So I think for a lot of reasons, tech's important. And tech will change in terms of what employers are looking for from their tech workers, but companies are not going to ever not need their tech workers. They just might need more from them or different things from them.
Different skills. Makes perfect sense. Folks, go check out NC Tech. Even if you're joining today and you're not in North Carolina, you should follow them, follow their social channels, jump on their website. They do so much great work. It's such a great resource to kind of see what's happening in our industry, to see job opportunities, to see the events that they're doing. It's really an invaluable resource. I'd recommend checking them out and doing whatever you can to be involved with NC Tech. Brooks, how'd we do?
Well, you did great. You could tell me how I did. I think it was good.
Great. No, you did great. Absolutely. Is there anything coming up that you want to plug or mention?
Sure. We always have things going on. Our calendar is constantly being updated. But one of the things that I really enjoy every year is we host our annual Leadership Summit. It takes place in early August in Pinehurst. Again, we won't mention humidity, but it's always a beautiful day in Pinehurst. And it's where it's a more relaxed atmosphere. It's a less formal environment. We keep it to a couple hundred people. And it's a way for leaders, any employee of a member company is eligible to attend, but typically it skews toward leadership, talking about issues that leadership is interested in. Very many of the things we just talked about are part of that. What kind of background is good for people if they want to go into leadership roles in their companies and employers? And so anyway, early August, the dates escape me. That's taking place. But one thing I'll mention for those who happen to see this live or between now and the 25th of July, we for 30 years have put on the annual NC Tech Awards. This is the statewide Tech Awards program. It is not a member-only thing. We encourage all companies, employers of all types and sizes to apply for the categories that are available. Some of the grouping of categories are just for tech companies. Some are for companies or organizations that have used tech to move the needle in their organization. And then there are a few individual awards like CIO of the Year, Tech CEO of the Year. The application nomination period for that ends on July 25th. It's a great way to put your own company in the mix for one of those awards, or a client, a partner, somebody you want to highlight and give them some recognition. nctech.org/awards should get you there, but it's on our website very prominently. And I would really encourage people from all over the state. I know you have some people who are not from North Carolina probably listening. The criteria for eligibility would be that you have your company has some presence in North Carolina. You don't have to be headquartered here, but some presence here.
For our employer partners watching, absolutely get involved. I had made a note, Brooks, that I need to get on our application. By the way, I appreciate the little nudge there. Thank you.
Sure.
And we will do the same. This has been a great conversation. I love the topic. I love to talk about the health of IT. And I especially enjoy it when someone, so bright and dialed in as you, Brooks, joins to kind of share some information. So really appreciate you carving out. What are we? We're at 40 some odd minutes. I really appreciate the 40 minutes of time. Certainly.
I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, everyone. We will be back here, as you know, next week, same time, same place. We'll update you earlier in the week on what we're going to be talking about. But until then, we can't wait to see you, and certainly have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Brooks, you have a wonderful weekend as well.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll see you all later. Thank you. And Brooks, if you can just hang for a second.
Yep.
All right.